Today we're talking about something I call the motive. It's one of the most fundamental and important principles behind leadership, and it's something I didn't discover till later in my career. And I remember thinking about it a lot whenever I went to like a high school or college graduation, and the speaker would say something like, "Everybody, you should go out and be a leader. Go change the world." And I used to think, no, I don't think you should do that, because if they don't want to do it for the right reason, then it's actually dangerous. And that's what the motive is about. And that is this: if you're a leader, you have to make sure that the reason you're a leader, your motive, is correct. And there's really two fundamental motives for being a leader. One, the incorrect motive, which is very common in society, is that you see leadership as a reward. That means I want to be the leader, the CEO, the head of an organization, because it would say something about me. It would give me fame or power or money or fun or notoriety. And this is very common, especially young people think, yeah, wouldn't that be cool? We run for student body president when we're young because I get to be the student body president. Very few people when they're young think of leadership in the right way. And we often think about it as being a reward. The real motive, the best motive, the purest motive for being a leader is responsibility. And that means we should see leadership as a burden, a responsibility in the pursuit of serving others. It's a sacrifice. A great leader knows that they're not doing it for what they get. They're doing it for what others will benefit from. It's self-sacrificing. That's why when people talk about servant leadership, I always want to say, stop saying that, because it implies that there's another kind that's valid. All great leaders, to be a truly great leader, have to be responsibility-centered. Now, what I didn't realize when I wrote the book, The Motive, is that many leaders would read it and say, oh my gosh, I've slipped. I've become a reward-centered leader. They were willing to call themselves on it, which I thought was wonderful. And I can say this, as much as I believe in responsibility-centered leadership, I've slipped also. Sometimes we get comfortable or complacent as leaders, and we start to think about, what am I getting out of this, rather than what am I doing for others? So as it turns out, there's a few different activities that I found out that many leaders don't like to do if they're reward-centered. And I can relate to this too. The first one is when a leader says, I don't want to have difficult conversations with people. I don't want to have to go confront somebody around something behavioral or sensitive, because I just don't like to do that. That's uncomfortable for me. Well, being a leader is not about being comfortable. And our job is to make sure that we do that so that it allows others to work in a better environment. If the leader isn't willing to engage in those uncomfortable conversations, it's probably not going to happen. Another behavior is, and this is one I can kind of relate to because I like being a leader, but sometimes I didn't like being a manager. But a great leader has to manage their direct reports. They have to take the time to know what people are working on, to be available to them to solve problems, and to stay on top of those things and making sure they're improving and developing as people. Another one is a lot of leaders say, I don't want to do team building. Now, this is something I naturally like to do, but every leader has to take the time to intentionally build their leadership team. They can't delegate that or abdicate that to somebody else like a consultant or HR. Every leader has to take responsibility. Even if they use others, they have to make it their initiative to build a team. Another one is, and I hear this a lot, is we have to run great meetings. I've talked to so many leaders who say, man, if I didn't have to go to meetings, I'd love this job. It's like, well, if you want to be the leader of an organization, you have to run good, compelling, organized meetings. You can't abdicate that. You can't just get out of it and treat it as corporate penance. You have to make it really important. And the final behavior that leaders have when they're reward-centered is sometimes they don't like to over-communicate. They don't like to remind people of things. And I've worked with so many CEOs that said, I already said that once, I shouldn't have to say it again. And I say to them, no, you're the chief reminding officer. You have to say it 7 times. And they say, oh, I'm kind of bored with that. Or that feels redundant. Or I want to move on to the next thing. Well, again, that says that you're leading because you want to be entertained, not that you want others to really know what's going on. So those 5 things are very common activities that a reward-centered leader might tend to overlook. A responsibility-centered leader is going to do those regardless of whether he or she wants to, but because he or she knows that others need them to. And so let's purify our motive around why we're leaders, and then we're so much more likely to give the people we lead what they really need.